Good afternoon. Welcome to Africa Today. I am Uduak Daniel. First, let's talk the headlines. And on the headlines, Nigerians advised to vote based on issues, not cultural bias. Still on the headlines, Burkina Faso appoints new president. Also on the headlines, Namibia experiences outbreak of swine flu. And on sports, Eagles drops in new FIFA ranking. And now the news in detail. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has commended the military for the safe release of the remaining 23 kidnapped train passengers held in captivity by Boko Haram terrorists. In a reaction to the news of the safe release of the hostages in line with his earlier directives, President Buhari expressed his happiness and satisfaction, and that of the entire nation, with the military as well as other security agencies. He said the nation owed the military and other security and intelligence agencies a debt of gratitude for the successful conduct of the operation leading to the release of the hostages, saying that these agencies had shown outstanding capabilities over this period that the whole world would not fail to take note of. In expressing satisfaction with the successful deployment of both kinetic and non-kinetic processes leading to the eventual safe release of the remaining hostages, President Buhari also congratulated the families of the victims for having them back alive. The president also credited the armed forces for resolving the issue and the de-escalation of the terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping that surged recently, given assurances that the efforts will be sustained. As Nigeria looks towards choosing a leader come 2023 in the midst of various ethnical clamor for inclusiveness, socio-cultural researcher John Elemi has asserted that Nigerians are not expected to vote based on culture, tradition, or tribal sentiments.
When there is power failure, it happens to everyone. When there is health challenge, a situation where the healthcare providers are not there, it happens to everyone. Today, our country, the academic institution is actually going through a kind of a strike, now, it's not only the child of someone from Maiduguri that's on strike. It's not only the child of someone from Cross River State that's on strike. The child of all Nigerians are on strike. Now, these things affect everyone. Now, we go to the market to buy stuff. We are all buying at the same rate. There is no difference to say that, you are from here, I would sell different to you. There's nothing like that. So everything that's happening to us as a nation when it comes to leadership, it affects everyone. It doesn't select who to affect and who not to. So
he made these comments during Boss FM 95.5 Abuja flagship political probe show Arena 36+1, monitored by Hills TV. Elemi also advocated that Nigeria should unite based on humanity and not based on ethnicity. And now to matters that concern the Independent National Electoral Commission, that is the INEC, having you know that INEC has released the final list of candidates that will contest the governorship and houses of assembly elections in 28 states of the federation in the 2023 elections. In a statement signed on Wednesday by the National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee, Festus Okoye, the list contained 18 political parties that fielded 837 candidates and their running mates for the 28 governorship elections. Also, the statement indicated that 10,231 candidates would vie for 993 seats in the state assembly elections. The list also included the names of the running mates to the governorship candidates from the 18 political parties billed to participate in the poll. Findings by Newsman indicate that no fewer than 14 candidates in 12 states have been knocked off the INEC list on account of litigation and controversies that dogged the party's primary elections. This is against the backdrop of ongoing litigations in Ebonyi, Akwa Ibom, Enugu, Rivers, Ogun, and 4 other states. According to the elections timetable for the 2023 general elections, the governorship and state houses of assembly elections will take place on March 11, 2023. Those cleared for the governorship race include Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun, Ovie Omo Agege of Delta State, and 833 others. When we return, news from other parts of West Africa. Stay with us. In Burkina Faso, the Patriotic Movement for Safeguarding and Restoration, that is the MPSR, on Wednesday appointed Captain Ibrahim Traoré as president of the country. The appointment comes less than a week after the latest coup in the West African country, the second in less than 9 months. The spokesperson, Captain Kiswendi Sidia Farouk Azaria Sogo, while making the announcement on national television, said Traoré will serve as head of state and the supreme commander of the National Armed Forces, as he is the guarantor of the independence of the judiciary. However, the announcement further states that if the president is unable to act, his powers are exercised by the first vice president and, if necessary, by the second vice president. Burkina Faso also plunged into turmoil last weekend when Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, who had seized power in January, was toppled by newly emerged rival Ibrahim Traoré, who handed a faction of disgruntled junior officers. Earlier this week, delegates from the Economic Community of West African States, that is ECOWAS, visited the country on a fact-finding mission and held meetings with religious and traditional rulers and leaders, as well as the new military ruler. Still on the West African terrain, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has announced the deaths of dozens of youths, children in Gambia from acute kidney injuries, which he says may be linked to contaminated cough and cold syrups made by an Indian drug manufacturer, the World Health Organization said on Wednesday. That is the WHO. He further went on to state that on Wednesday, after findings arrived at following tests on several medicinal syrups that were suspected of causing 66 child deaths in the tiny West African country, the WHO had issued a medical product alert on Wednesday, asking regulators to move New Delhi pharmaceutical company goods from the market. When we return, news from other parts of Africa. Stay with us. Welcome back to News Africa today on Hills TV. Namibia on Wednesday confirmed 54 cases of swine flu out of 190 suspected cases, according to the health ministry in a statement. The central Odzong-Japa region and the area surrounding the capital, Windhoek, were the most affected, with 24 positive cases reported in each area. Namibia last experienced a large-scale swine flu outbreaks in 2009 to 2010, when over 8,000 suspected cases were reported. During that outbreak, 102 people tested positive and 1 person died. H1N1 influenza, also known as swine flu, is an acute viral respiratory infection in humans, often characterized by fever, headache, myalgia, and other flu-like symptoms. Giving you more stories, it is indeed a sad day for Kenya's Sirisia Member of Parliament, that is MP John Waluke, has been ordered to pay 1 billion shillings fine or serve 57 years in jail for fraud. Waluke, who had appealed against the magistrate's court's ruling that slapped him with heavy sentences, lost the appeal before the High Court today, October 6. Waluke was, in June 2020, found guilty of defrauding the National Cereals and Produce Board, that is the NCBP, to 997 million shillings. Justice Esther Maina said in a ruling on Thursday that the prosecution proved beyond any reasonable doubt that Waluke took part in the fraud, hence the verdict. The MP secured re-election in the August 9, 2022 Kenya election at Sirisia parliamentary polls. Coming right up next is Business on Africa Today. Stay with us. A delight it is to welcome you back to Africa Today, this time talking the business desk. Let's start off with letting you in on the fact that fourth annual edition of the Digital Quality of Life Index, that is the DQL, reports that Nigeria ranks 114 in the world by internet affordability. The DQL study is conducted by a cybersecurity company evaluating countries based on 5 fundamental digital well-being pillars: internet quality, e-government, e-infrastructure, internet affordability, and e-security. This year, Nigeria comes at the lower end of the index, ranking 86th and only making it into the top 90 in the final index, as it ranks 7th in Africa. In a report of 117 countries out of the 5 fundamental digital life pillars, Nigeria's worst score is for internet affordability, ranking 114th globally, and the best is for e-security, 66th. To some stock market and exchange matters, the Nigerian stock markets lost 1.48 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2022 as investors shifted investment to fixed market instruments. In the period under review, the stock market witnessed an increase in interest rates to 15.5%, the third consecutive rate hike and the highest since the MPC replaced the minimum rediscount rate, that is the MRR, with the monetary policy rate, that is the MPR, in 2006. The stock market in the first half of 2022 maintained positive momentum from the prior year in the first half, that is the H1 of 2021, with a return of 21.3% over impressive corporate earnings by listed companies. From a quarterly perspective, the market mood was bullish in the 2 quarters, with quarter 1 returning 10.3% higher than 9.9% in quarter 2. However, as the market entered quarter 3 with the MPR hike, investors began to take advantage of the rising yield environment in the fixed income space while dumping their stocks. Still to come on Africa Today is sports. Stay with us.
Afternoon and welcome to Sports News on Africa Today. I am Aidnan Lubem. Now to Sports News. Nigeria Super Eagles dropped from 31st to 32nd in the latest FIFA World Ranking released today. In Africa, the Super Eagles are in number 4 behind 2022 World Cup bound Senegal, who are on the first position, Morocco second, and Tunisia third, according to the ranking which was published on FIFA's official website. Speculations are that the slip-up in the latest ranking by the Super Eagles may be connected to their unimpressive display in last month's international break. Nigerian forward Rashidat Ajibade has been confirmed to lead Nigeria's senior women team when they confront their Japanese counterparts in a prestigious international friendly match in Kobe today. Captain Onome Ebi is only just recovering from an injury sustained at the Women's Africa Cup of Nations final in Morocco in July, and Spain-based forward Asisat Oshola is not in Kobe for this encounter, hence the swap. Ajibade scored 3 of Nigeria's goals in Morocco, including the winner against Cameroon in the quarterfinals that qualified the 9-time African champions for the Women's World Cup finals in Australia and New Zealand next year. First choice goalkeeper Chiamaka Nadozie is available alongside defenders Michelle Alozie, Osinachi Ohale, Ashley Plumtree and Glory Ogbonna, as well as midfielders Ngozi Okobi Okoegene, Christy Ucheibe and Deborah Abiodun, and forwards Ifeoma Onumonu and Uchenna Kanu. Liberia's Sport Minister Zilgar Wilson has blamed the country's Football Association, that is LFA, for the disqualification of their men's side from qualifiers for the Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations. The West Africans became the third country to be thrown out of a regional tournament for age cheating this week, after Djibouti and Sudan were expelled from the East and Central African qualifiers. Liberia were disqualified on Monday after 2 players failed a magnetic resonance imaging, that is MIR scan, which was being used by the West African Football Union, that is WAFU, in line with Confederation of African Football regulations. Meanwhile, the minister has launched an inquiry into an issue which he says has been briefed by President George Weah. And that's your sport news on Africa Today. Back to Uduak Daniel for the rest of the news.
Explosive and quite insightful. Thank you so much, Ainan Bulubem, for that one on sports. And now let's get on to the rest of the bulletin. The General Officer commanding, that is the GOC 8th Division Nigeria Army Headquarters, Sokoto, Major General Uwembasi, has called for fair hearing and speedy dispensation of justice in a general court-martial of 68 accused Army personnel of the division who committed alleged offenses during their participation in the ongoing Operation Hadaring Daji, meant to dislodge bandits in Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi, and Katsina states. The GOC made the call during the inauguration of the 12-member General Court-Martial panel at the Gingia Army Barracks, Sokoto. He said the court-martial is aimed at finding out the truth and dispense justice, not just for the victims, but for the institute and the state. Away from that, meanwhile, the Defense Counsel Barrister Godwin Owadie expressed optimism that the court would do justice to the cases before it. And that's Africa Today, but before we go, a quick look at our top stories. We told you Nigerians advised to vote based on issues, not cultural bias. We also told you Burkina Faso appoints new president. Earlier on the headlines, Namibia experiences outbreak of swine flu. And on sports, Eagles drop in new FIFA ranking. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Hills TV, as well as Instagram at Hills TV. Our YouTube channel is at Hills TV. I am Uduak Daniel. Thank you for watching.